Greetings, family. Peace and love to you and yours. This is Guru, and thanks for visiting my channel. Family, this video is about Johnnie Cochran. It's a part 2 to the review I did on his book called Journey to Justice, pictured here. Today, I'm going to start with chapter 4, which is called A Soul Divided. It's talking specifically about police misconduct. With that said, Johnnie Cochran says, as a former prosecutor, I had an insider's first-hand knowledge of just how tightly the thread of police misconduct was woven into the fabric of our civic life. I knew how many powerful people and institutions had a stake in the conspiracy of silence that allowed this evil to perpetuate itself year after year. I knew how ruthlessly the hierarchy would fight to defend its lawlessness. The policeman on the street is the single most powerful person in the entire American system of criminal justice. Most of the people with whom that officer comes into contact are relatively powerless, sometimes unpopular, often friendless. At that moment, the policeman literally has the power of life and death. Even if he chooses not to take your life, he may beat or maim you. He may lie about it. He may lie about your conduct and, in a system that accepts his word as gospel, thereby change your life forever. In Los Angeles, the police had become accustomed to exercising all that power virtually unchecked by any authority higher than their own headquarters. The common theme observed by Cochran was that it was clear to me from the start that the one thing both judge and jury had in common was an almost unshakable predisposition to believe the police. And as case after case rolled through my busy schedule, it also was clear to me that the stories those police officers told were remarkably, some might even say incredibly, alike. In Los Angeles, those days, you could be held in contempt for calling a police officer a liar. Cops, attorneys, courts, defendants, we all were dancing to the same music, and that tune was being orchestrated down at police headquarters. The Los Angeles Police Department also earned a reputation as one of the country's most corrupt. Acting in concern with City Hall officials, the police took a lucrative share of LA's burgeoning bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution racket. Public outrage mounted, culminating in a reform movement that, in 1938, forced the recall of the notorious mayor, Frank A. Shaw. By March 1965, I had become one of the city's attorney's top trial lawyers. But increasingly, the cases that came my way were what we called, quote, 148s, unquote. That is, they involved defendants charged with violating Section 148 of the California Penal Code, which prohibits resisting arrest or interfering with an officer in the course of his or her duties. The defendants invariably displayed visible injuries ranging from cuts and bruises to fractured limbs. The officers with whom they allegedly had struggled never had so much as a visible scratch. 90% or more of the defendants had something else in common. They were African American men. Everyone in the courtroom knew precisely what was going on. LAPD officers privately referred to the Penal Code Section 148 as, quote, the attitude test. Johnnie Cochran goes on to say, once again, I was face to face with my two-ness. There was no inherent conflict between my role as prosecutor sworn to uphold the law and my identity as an African American. But there was an irreparable contradiction between my silent acquiescence to injustice and my sense of duty to my community. Quote, a man cannot serve two masters, unquote. I realize Du Bois' description of how Frederick Douglass had resolved his own inner struggle because he, quote, bravely stood for the ideals of his early manhood, ultimate assimilation through self-assertion and on no other terms, unquote. He describes how on Mondays when Lenore and I returned from court, our waiting room usually contained a number of prospective clients with black eyes, limbs in splints, heads swathed in bandages, and he would say, quote, "Don't tell me," I'd say, as they sat down in their chair opposite my desk, "you're charged with resisting and interfering with an officer in the performance of his duty," or "you're charged with battery on a police officer." "How can you tell?" the client would ask. "Oh, something about the way you look," I would say. To negotiate a deal, usually a plea of no contest to the lesser charge of disturbing the peace, the city was protected from any legal liability, and my client was spared a harsher penalty. It was what lawyers called a result, but it was nobody's idea of justice. Family, I'm going to stop right there. As I said before, I'm going to cover different aspects of this book. I thought it was very important. It's telling of the criminal justice system, namely dealing with police misconduct. This is very important information. I'm glad and happy to share it with you. And with that said, I'm going to end this video showing you one other picture here that is very telling. So family, did you know that in 2002, Johnnie Cochran was putting together a group of powerful civil rights lawyers and class action lawyers called the Reparations Assessment Group to sue the United States government for reparations for Africans in America. But he died shortly after forming the group, and everyone in his law firm was fired shortly after. I thought this was pretty interesting information. I didn't know anything about it. Family, please like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe. If you'd like to leave a comment, please leave one below in the comments section. Thank you very much for watching. Until the next video, peace and love to you and yours. Take care.